Yeah, that's a bummer. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to one last Kraken R&R for the second season of the Seattle Kraken, as they do fall in Game 7 to the Dallas Stars. 2-1 is the final. For the Kraken, I mean, yeah, this one sucks. It sucks that they can't be moving on to have that expansion rivalry matchup with Vegas in the conference finals, but what a season for this team. I mean, coming into the season, obviously, we've talked about it throughout this season, heard about it from everywhere that this was not a season anyone outside of maybe that locker room and front office expected coming into the year. There were still people that were, I mean, more optimistic than I was coming into this year that thought they could once again compete for a playoff spot, or I should say that once again expected that that could be a thing they do by the end of the season, even if it didn't happen in the first year. But I don't know how many people realistically thought it would happen. Obviously, I mean, myself, I think I picked them 7th in the Pacific at the start of the year. And then they go on this incredible run of a season to make it to the playoffs as the top wild card in the West, and then beat the defending champs in round 1 and go all the way to game 7 of round 2 against a Stars team that honestly I still feel is the best team in the West, or at least most balanced anyway. We'll find out against Vegas here in the conference final, but what a ride it was with this Kraken team, regardless of the disappointment, and mostly just disappointment at the opportunity that was there with just one more win to get to that conference final, and then you're just 4 away from a Stanley Cup final. But yeah, it's a heck of a season, and regardless of how it ended, this is a team that has a bright future ahead of it, and seems like that may have come even earlier, or at least started earlier than anybody expected. And heck, even at that, in this last series against the Stars, who knows how that could have gone differently if the Kraken had been as healthy as the Stars were. I don't know if they were missing anybody. Obviously, Pavelski coming back for them in game 1 and made a massive difference in this series. Really, the series MVP at the end of it. I don't think it's at all a stretch to say that. For the Kraken, obviously missing Burakovsky for most of the back half of the season and this entire playoff run. He was their best forward at the time he left, so obviously that could have made a big difference. And then McCann out for the first few games. Sure, the Kraken won 2 of those, but even at that one, McCann did come back. It took him at least a game to really get back in the flow of things. And even then, who knows if he was fully back at it. But again, even through all of that, this is a team that all season long defied expectations to not only make it to the playoffs, again, missing one of their best forwards, if not their best forward for the back half of the season, get to the second round of the playoffs through the Avalanche, missing their top scorer for most of that series, and then go all the way to 7 against a very good Stars team. Again, missing that guy in McCann for half of that series, and still without Burakovsky. And the good news is for the Kraken that next year, it's going to be a lot of the same guys that are going to be coming back. In fact, I don't know that I expect any changes in the top 9. Maybe there's a trade, but I would expect that you have pretty much the same top 9 coming into next season. A couple of changes probably in that fourth line, or at least which guys get mixed into the lineup there with Sprong and Donato. I don't know if they'll come back. We'll have a few end of season videos coming up where we'll get more deep into that. But yeah, outside of a couple changes here and there around the edges, it's going to be basically the same roster running it back now with a full year of experience playing with each other and in this system that got them all this way this year. Plus you'll have Beniers with an extra year of experience and whatever growth he's able to do in the offseason. Who knows if Shane Wright can join and hop into the lineup, plus the emergence now of Ty Cartier coming in next season. If he can work his way up into the lineup, which again, we'll get into that with some of the postseason and then looking forward to next year videos that will be coming out here in the next few weeks. But the future is bright for this team, not just what happened this year or what could happen next year, but years to come with a pretty good looking farm system to keep adding to that throughout the next few years on top of it. As for right now, though, in this final game of the season for the Kraken, yeah, I can see where some people might be disappointed with how the game goes. It takes the Kraken until the final literal seconds of the game to score in it. But honestly, this one I think just came down to the Stars really playing their style of game. The same style of game that we saw in game 2 and then somewhat in game, 5, where the Stars really took control, limiting the Kraken forecheck quite a bit defensively and just not allowing the Kraken to get much going offensively. Certainly not building much consistency getting into the offensive end. And this was probably the Stars' best game of the series. Heck, it might be one of their better games of the year as far as that's concerned. Just an incredibly strong game for them on the back check, not letting the Kraken forecheck take over and get that flow started in the offensive end. The Kraken only get set up a fair few times in the offensive end over the course of this game. And while I'm sure there's going to be a pessimistic fan out there that's going to see that and think that it was just the Kraken playing a sloppy, lazy, bad game, or that they came out tired, I'm sure there was some that this is the 14th game already of the playoffs for the Kraken, being the only team that went to 7 in both of the first 2 rounds. There probably was some fatigue that set in there, but I think you just got to give credit where it's due. This was a game where the Stars just wanted it that bit more and were able to play that extremely strong game defensively. And ultimately, it came down to just a few minutes of sloppy play for the Kraken at the other end of the ice that ended up costing them this one. Now, the first period was played pretty evenly between the two teams. The Kraken pretty much matching what the Stars were doing defensively and not giving them any time or space in the offensive end outside of the one power play the Stars got where they held the puck into the offensive end the entire power play start to finish. It never crossed the blue line. But the Kraken also never really let it into the middle of the offensive end either, and killed that power play off with a number of huge block shots, a couple of saves from Grubauer, and even with the Stars holding the offensive end, they're never able to really create much dangerous looks out of it. And the Kraken do end up getting a power play, even in spite of the fantastic Game 6 the power play had. It was right back to being completely anemic here in Game 7. It just got the one opportunity, but the Stars had no problem killing it off. And by the end of the period, I don't remember what the shot total was, but both teams, I think, were under 10 shots or right around 10 shots. So a pretty defensive heavy first period that obviously ended 0-0 with really the two best scoring opportunities of the period coming right away at the start of the game. I can't remember who it was for the Stars that got the first shot off. Grubauer made a big blocker save. And then right back the other way, Wember got a very good look out in front of the Dallas net, but put it just over the top corner. Past that rest of the first period got really locked down at both ends of the ice. And the second period was pretty much more of the same, at least for the first 10 minutes of it. However, in the back half of the second period, the Kraken, whether it was fatigue or who knows what, just trying to stretch the game out a little bit to create something offensively, the defensive end, they did really start to look pretty sloppy, allowed the Stars to get some momentum going offensively for really the first time for either team in this game. And Grubauer had to absolutely stand on his head here in the early part of the back half of the second period, making big save after big save after big save for the Kraken, keeping the score tied right up until it was just one golden opportunity too many for the Stars. The final one that ends up being the dagger for the Kraken, or at least gets the Stars on the board first, comes on a bit of a weird play through the neutral zone. The puck is coming right to Alexiak, and he's going to try and pull it to himself, but I don't know what it hit on the way to Alexiak, if it was a weird patch of slow ice in front of him, or if there was something it deflected off of that was away from the play that I didn't see. Either way, the puck just kind of slows down unexpectedly in front of Alexiak, and as he's going past it, thinking he's just going to scoop it up, he ends up kind of overskating it because that puck slows down, and as he's trying to pull it back towards him, Roope Hintz just jumps on the opportunity, takes the puck off Alexiak's stick, in on the break, and a perfect shot over the blocker, far side into the corner past Grubauer, to give the Stars the 1-0 lead. And with the Kraken not getting much going offensively, that would hold until the second intermission. And unfortunately, in the third period, the Kraken once again just not able to really find that spark that they had throughout this series to get those bursts of goals that they got in a number of the games. It just never really materialized. In fact, I think it took them until the 5-minute mark to even get a shot on goal here in the third. And by the time we get into the last few minutes of the third period, the Kraken still only had the 2 shots on goal. Now, they did hit a couple of posts, so there was a number more shooting attempts and a couple that they got past Ottinger, but nothing going into the net. Eventually, Gord does get the first great scoring opportunity for the Kraken, really since early on in the first period. That also goes off of a post beyond Ottinger. Then, just as you're starting to think about when the Kraken, over the next couple of minutes, might think about pulling Grubauer to try to get this game at least to overtime with the tying goal, a puck ends up down the ice, and it looks like it's going to be icing, but Wyatt Johnston beats every Kraken to it, which prevents the icing. He picks it up on the goal line, and then just makes a beautiful move to backhand shot this one right off Grubauer's shoulder and into the top corner short side to put the Stars up 2-0, and that would pretty much do it. The Kraken, to their credit, do make it interesting in the final 30 seconds of this game, still really not getting much going until those final 30 seconds. And then the Kraken season comes down to 3 faceoffs in these final seconds in the Dallas end of the ice. And they managed to get a shot off on goal, which is stopped by Ottinger. So that leads to another faceoff in the offensive end, which the Kraken win that one too. That can't be right. The Kraken winning back-to-back faceoffs against the Stars. But they do, and right off that faceoff, it ends up by the net. Gord on a beautiful forecheck prevents Ottinger from getting another freeze. It gets out to Bjorkstrand, and the same hero from Game 7 against the Avalanche buries it into the back of the net to at least get the Kraken to within 1 with just 9 seconds left. So it's still going to take a miracle. Actually, 17 seconds left, sorry, but it's still going to take a miracle at this point. But honestly, it seemed like a miracle the Kraken even managed to prevent the shutout in the first place. They win the faceoff then at center ice, so that's, I think, 3 in a row, and they get it right back down the ice, force another freeze by Ottinger with 9 seconds left on a shot by McCann, and then it all comes down this season to one last faceoff in the offensive end, which lo and behold, the Kraken win that one as well. The shot comes from Dunn, but it hits the pad of Ottinger, goes out and harmlessly to the boards, where the last couple of seconds take off, and the Stars hold on to win the game. Got through that one pretty quickly, but again, we knew the result. It's a disappointing loss for the Kraken, but disappointing just in that it was so close, one goal away from at least forcing overtime, and then who knows what happens. But just that one game, one win away from moving on to the conference finals. So not disappointing in the fact that if you had told us coming into the season, or heck, even coming into the playoffs, that the Kraken would be in Game 7 of the second round, I think any Kraken fan would have happily taken that. Just once you're there, obviously, regardless of how it happens, would have been nice to see the Kraken win it. Just wasn't meant to be this season. We'll see what happens next year. Beyond that, I really don't think there's anything more we need to say about this game. Again, it's the last one of the season for the Kraken, so it's not like there's really anything for them to build off of. This game in particular, they'll look at what happened this season and learn for next season. But as far as we're concerned with these videos, I don't think we need to say much more about it. Obviously, it wasn't the most inspired offensive effort from the Kraken, which I'm sure will frustrate some fans. But again, for me, that mostly came down to just an incredible defensive effort from the Stars. You just got to tip your hat to them for a great game played and really playing the Kraken the perfect way that it takes to beat this Kraken team this season, suffocating the Kraken forecheck and not letting them create anything in the offensive end off of it. Also doing a good job in the neutral zone to prevent the Kraken from creating those rush chances, or even once the Kraken started to try and stretch the ice a bit in the back half of the third and extend things north-south, the Stars were just getting sticks in lanes and preventing the Kraken from stretching out the ice. So in all aspects, the Stars had the Kraken number defensively in this game, and I think that's really what made the difference. So yeah, for the Kraken, it's a bummer, but again, it's one bummer at the end of what was otherwise an incredible season, and one that I'm sure made a number of new fans here in Seattle. And of course, finally, for one last time this season, Kraken 3 stars of the game. Honestly, this is one where, because the Kraken really couldn't get much of anything going, I don't know if I would have given out 3 stars if it wasn't the last game of the season, but it would feel weird to end the year on a game where I don't give out 3 stars, so we'll get 3 here. The first star for me is Philip Grubauer. He definitely did enough in this game for the Kraken to be able to win it. They just weren't able to create the offense to make that happen. Second star, honestly, I felt like Ty Cartier had a fantastic 200-foot game in this one. He got a couple of shots on goal, laid some pretty nice hits, and also had a couple back-checking plays where he prevented what otherwise could have been pretty good scoring opportunities for the Stars, especially in the second period. And then the third star, what the heck, the lone goal scorer and the guy that scored 3 goals in 2 Game 7s for the Kraken, Oliver Bjorkstrand, will get the third star in this one. As for the playoffs as a whole, and I'll have a more comprehensive season finale video here in the next couple of days once I'm able to collect some thoughts a little bit more, look at some stats comparing last season to this season maybe a bit, just because that'll make this season look even better than it was. But really focusing on how this season ended up, we'll do that, and some player grades that'll be coming up. But as far as Kraken 3 stars for these playoffs, not the whole season, just these playoffs, I'm going to go first star, Jaden Schwartz, I think was, well, Who am I kidding? First star, Philip Grubauer. The Kraken don't get to where they were in these playoffs if Grubauer doesn't step up and honestly, I think surprised just about everyone with how well he played in these playoffs. I've been a Grubauer optimist pretty much this entire time from last season all the way to this season. Yes, I know he had a terrible season last year, but again, I think a lot of that had to do with the defense not having a great year in front of him. Either way, Grubauer finally playing the type of hockey consistently that we knew he could and doing it at the most important time for this franchise so far. He got the Kraken to both of these game sevens. Yeah, the Kraken offense definitely stepped up, especially in this series against the Stars to beat one of the best goaltenders, if not the best remaining goaltender of the playoffs in Ottinger, who had a great first series, and we'll see what he does against Vegas. Maybe it was just the Kraken were the only team that could solve him. We'll just have to wait and see as far as that's concerned, but Grubauer did his best to win that matchup. Second star, that is where I'll go with Jaden Schwartz. He had a fantastic playoff run here for the Kraken. I would say easily the best skater for them. Third star, that's a bit trickier. I want to say Morgan Geekie, but really he had a really strong first series and then wasn't super noticeable here in the second series against the Stars. He had some moments here and there, but in the end, I think I'm going to go with Jordan Eberle, which for any Avs fans watching, I know is going to probably poke a sore wound there with the hit that Eberle had in Game 6 of that series. He didn't get suspended and probably should have, but he didn't make a huge impact in that Game 7. He did have a huge impact in this series and obviously had the OT winner at home in Game 4 of that series against the Avalanche. So, yeah, I think 3 stars for the Kraken in this playoff run, first playoff run in franchise history. Philip Grubauer 1, Jaden Schwartz 2, Jordan Eberle 3. Number of guys obviously played well. The Kraken, 18 different goal scorers in this playoff run, which I think is an NHL record, at least tied for, if not sets the NHL record for most different goal scorers in a playoff run for a team. It's got to be up there if it's not the record. I don't know for sure that it's the record, but I know at one point they were talking about the Kraken being one of 3 teams that have had 16 different goal scorers, so I have to imagine 18 is right up there. Yeah, I know this has been somewhat of a rambly, not super energetic final video, but like I said, I'll have a much more comprehensive look back at this season for the Kraken coming up here. Will probably be the next video we'll do is a look back at this season. I might just do that being the player grade video and kind of go player by player. We might do 2 separate videos and keep them a little bit shorter. We'll see how that pans out. We'll have certainly a season recap. We'll have player grades, and then we'll have a video looking at the outlook of what I think is going to change in this offseason and going into next year. Again, I don't know that it's going to be a ton, not as much as I think what we saw between year 1 and year 2 for the Kraken, but definitely some changes there. And yeah, after that, I've got some projects that I've been working on and haven't had time to really get to here with the playoffs going for the Kraken. We'll have some 101s coming out that didn't happen at all during the course of the regular season with how busy that was. But 101s, including we have face-offs coming up, 101 on face-offs, which probably could have been done during the course of the season with how face-offs went for the Kraken. But that one, at least one more in the history series. That one's been a much requested one. Definitely. I don't know if it was actually streamed obviously for Game 7. So if you joined for Game 7, thank you very much for joining there. I don't know if I'll be streaming again in these playoffs. Maybe I'll do one in the Stanley Cup final just because. I can't guarantee it. The next stream I can guarantee is we'll be doing the entry draft for sure. Beyond that, yeah. Heck of a season. Still more videos to come. Just no more R&Rs until October. So with that having been said, one more time, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below on this game. Early thoughts on the start of the offseason for the Kraken. If there's a team out of the last 4 that you're rooting for, feel free to put that down in the comment section below. And, well, if you're only here for the R&Rs, I suppose until October, thank you very much for joining. If you did make it to this point, thank you very much. There are buttons down below that help support the channel. And until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other. God bless, and as always, go Kraken.